Good morning, everyone, and welcome. Today, we'll be diving into the fascinating world of monopoly, exploring key concepts such as market power, pricing strategies, efficiency, and the role of public policy. I'm excited to guide you through how monopolies operate and influence our economy. Let's get started. On this slide, we'll take a closer look at the key areas we'll cover. First, we'll explore the origins of monopolies, understanding how and why single sellers come to dominate certain markets, represented here by the castle icon. Next, we'll examine how monopolists decide on the right level of output and pricing to maximize their profits, illustrated by the chart diagram. Then, we'll compare monopoly outcomes to those under perfect competition, allowing us to see the differences in market performance, symbolized by the balanced scale. Finally, we'll analyze pricing strategies, looking at how price discrimination and regulation impact profits, output, and overall efficiency, highlighted by the tag icon. The image with arrows, especially the bold red one, represents navigating through these complex economic concepts and finding clear direction. Let's talk about what really defines a monopoly. At its core, a monopoly exists when there is only one seller in the market. This means no other companies offer close substitutes, so consumers don't have alternative choices. Additionally, there are significant barriers preventing other firms from entering the market, which keeps that single seller dominant. Because the monopolist controls the whole market supply, they become price makers. In other words, they can influence the price instead of just accepting it. This unique position gives them a lot of power over the market dynamics. Monopolies can arise for several important reasons, and understanding these helps us see why competition can sometimes be limited. First, legal barriers play a big role. Patents and licenses create exclusive rights that prevent other companies from entering the market. Then, there's key resource control, where a firm has exclusive access to essential materials or assets, effectively blocking competitors from offering the same goods or services. Another factor is network effects. As more users join a network, the value of that network increases, making it tougher for new companies to compete because customers tend to stick with the largest or most connected provider. Finally, natural monopolies occur when one large firm can serve the entire market more efficiently than multiple smaller ones, often due to cost advantages from economies of scale. These four factors together explain why monopolies can develop and persist in different industries. Here, we see the demand curve and the marginal revenue curve for a monopoly. The demand curve shows the price consumers are willing to pay for each quantity of the product, with prices decreasing as quantity increases. For instance, at a quantity of 1 unit, the price is at its highest, 100, and it steadily falls to just 10 at 10 units. The marginal revenue curve, however, behaves differently. It always lies below the demand curve, except at the first unit, reflecting that each additional unit sold adds less to total revenue than the price suggests. So when the quantity increases from 1 to 2 units, the marginal revenue drops to 80, even though the price for the second unit is 90. This gap between price and marginal revenue is a classic feature of monopoly markets, resulting from the fact that the monopolist must lower the price on all units sold to increase sales. Understanding these curves is critical because the monopolist will produce where marginal revenue equals marginal cost to maximize profit, not necessarily where demand is highest. This leads to a lower quantity and a higher price than in a competitive market, highlighting one of the key inefficiencies of monopolies. Here we see how a monopolist decides on the output level and the corresponding price. The chart plots demand, marginal revenue, and marginal cost against quantity. Notice that the demand curve shows the price consumers are willing to pay for each quantity. The marginal revenue curve drops twice as fast, reflecting the fact that to sell more units, the monopolist must lower the price on all units sold. The key decision point is where marginal revenue equals marginal cost. This is where the monopolist maximizes profit. For example, at quantity 4, marginal revenue and marginal cost are both 40 and 25 respectively, so the monopolist will produce up to this point to maximize profit. setting the price based on the demand curve at this quantity. Producing beyond this point would mean marginal cost exceeds marginal revenue, reducing profitability. This interplay between the curves illustrates the unique pricing power a monopolist has in controlling output to influence market price. Here we explore the key concepts of profit, loss, and shutdown decisions in business operations. First, economic profit happens when the price of a product is higher than the average total cost, which means the company is making a positive return beyond covering all its costs. Next, the break-even point is reached when the price matches the average total cost, resulting in zero economic profit. The business is covering all costs, but not making extra profit. Lastly, operating at a loss occurs when the price falls below the average total cost, but still covers the average variable cost, so the company continues production in the short run despite losing money overall. Understanding these points helps businesses decide their production strategies and whether to continue, adjust, or shut down operations. Now, let's compare monopoly and perfect competition to understand their key differences. Starting with monopoly, it produces less output and charges a higher price compared to a perfectly competitive market. In the short run, monopolies often earn economic profit because there are no close substitutes or competitors. However, this situation leads to allocative inefficiency since the reduced output and higher prices mean consumers don't get the optimal quantity of goods. On the other hand, perfect competition produces a higher output at a lower price. Over the long run, firms in perfect competition earn zero economic profit because the presence of many competitors drives prices down to the level of average costs. This market structure achieves allocative efficiency by setting the price equal to the marginal cost, ensuring resources are used in the most effective way for consumer satisfaction. Understanding these differences helps us see why perfect competition is often considered ideal for consumer welfare, while monopolies can limit market efficiency. Here we see the welfare effects of a monopoly illustrated through the demand curve, marginal cost, and marginal revenue lines. The demand curve slopes downward, showing that as quantity increases, the price consumers are willing to pay decreases. The marginal cost line is constant, reflecting a fixed cost per unit of production. Marginal revenue lies below the demand curve and declines more steeply, which is typical in a monopoly because the firm must lower prices to sell additional units. The monopolist maximizes profit where marginal revenue equals marginal cost, in this case, at a lower quantity and higher price than in a perfectly competitive market. This leads to reduced consumer surplus and creates a deadweight loss, representing inefficiency and a loss of total welfare. This diagram highlights why monopolies can cause market distortions and why their welfare implications are important to consider. Price discrimination is when a seller charges different prices to different customers or for different units of the same product. This strategy allows a monopolist to capture more of the consumer surplus, which means they can increase their revenue beyond what charging a single price would allow. Interestingly, price discrimination can sometimes encourage more production, pushing output closer to what would be considered an efficient level in the market. This makes price discrimination a crucial concept to understand in terms of its impact on both business profits and overall market outcomes. Here we have three main types of price discrimination. First, let's talk about first-degree pricing. This strategy involves charging each customer the highest price they're willing to pay. It's highly personalized and often based on individual negotiations. For example, a car dealer might negotiate prices differently with each buyer. Next is second-degree pricing. This approach uses quantity or product versions to determine prices. Common examples include bulk discounts or charging more for premium versions of a product. Customers self-select based on their preference or purchasing volume. Finally, there's third-degree pricing, which segments customers into different groups and charges each group a distinct price. Examples include student discounts, senior pricing, or higher charges during peak times. This method targets specific groups to maximize revenue. Together, these strategies help businesses tailor pricing to different customer segments effectively. When it comes to regulating monopolies, governments have several tools at their disposal. First, there's antitrust enforcement, which aims to prevent monopolies from forming in the first place by promoting competition through laws and legal actions against anti-competitive behaviors. Then we have price caps, which set limits on the prices monopolies can charge. This approach protects consumers by ensuring prices remain fair while still allowing the company to earn some profit. Another method is average cost pricing, where prices are set equal to the firm's average costs. This ensures the monopoly covers its expenses but doesn't make excessive profits, striking a balance between sustainability and fairness. Marginal cost pricing takes it a step further, setting prices at the cost of producing one additional unit. This encourages efficiency but sometimes requires subsidies because prices might be too low to cover total costs. Finally, there's public ownership, where the government runs the monopoly directly. This allows them to balance public interests with service quality and investment needs, ensuring that the monopoly operates with the community's welfare in mind rather than just profit. Each of these approaches plays a crucial role in keeping monopolies in check while ensuring fair access and service. Let's review the key takeaways. First, monopolies arise because of barriers to entry, which protect a single seller by preventing others from entering the market. This lack of competition is what allows monopolies to exist in the first place. Next, a monopolist determines the level of output by producing where marginal revenue equals marginal cost. This is the point that maximizes their profit. Third, compared to competitive markets, monopolies tend to raise prices and reduce the quantity of goods available. This results in fewer choices for consumers and less overall supply in the market. Finally, price discrimination and regulatory policies can significantly impact monopoly profits, prices, and market efficiency. These factors have the power to change how the market functions and the outcomes for both producers and consumers.